Morning everybody. Welcome back to Tinkering with Electronics. Today we're working on a Zenith 7 Charlie 05 radio, and I've gone ahead and recapped this radio. The last time I did a video I talked more about the sweep generators than I did the actual alignment, and I thought I would just run through a complete alignment of this radio. Right now this radio sounds pretty good, and it's been aligned already, but we're going to run through the SAM's instructions on how to align the radio, and we'll be using the SAM's schematic that I have set up over here on my computer. And basically what the SAM schematic will do is it will have us inject a signal right here at the FM and AM mixer, and we'll take a 10.7 megahertz signal that's sweeping, and we will come through this can right here, L6. We'll also go through this can right here, and then we'll go through this can, and then ultimately we'll come out here where we'll measure the signal. We'll come through here where we'll measure the signal. What we're going to do now is we're going to take the radio that's currently aligned, and we'll run through each one of these cans. But first, let's make sure we understand what we're going to do. So I'll be right back. Okay, I hope this to be a more simplified version of what we'll be doing. We'll be injecting a signal right here at the FM AM mixer, and this will be a 10.7 megacycle signal that we'll inject, and it will be a sweeping signal. So it will use the 10.7 in the middle of that frequency, and it will vary up and down above 10.7. Each one of these transformers is basically a tank circuit, and we're going to tune each one of these to that 10.7 megahertz signal. The objective here is, in order to let that 10.7 megahertz signal travel through all this circuit up to point A until we get the strongest, largest signal that we can get with the 10.7 at nearly the middle of the waveform. And what we'll be looking at on the oscilloscope will be coming up similar to this as far as frequency. So we're looking at amplitude as frequency passes a sweep. So this will be frequency right here being swept, and we're looking at the amplitude, and where does that amplitude rise, and where we want is it to rise at the max at 10.7. So that means that our highs and our lows will be centered on both sides of that, so we'll get the best sound out of our radio. I hope that makes sense. After we get this part of the signal cleaned up to 10.7, we will then begin working further down the way in order to get 10.7 through the limiter. And all the limiter circuit does is, as different amplitudes, if let's say the amplitude of the frequency, the FM modulation is looking kind of like this, and highs and lows, if they're out of sorts as far as amplitude, the limiter tube will make sure that it clips the tops and bottoms. The frequencies will still be the same, which is what's important. So we'll have a nice even amount of voltage coming out once we come to C. And then we'll swap the circuit around again, and we're going to be looking at what happens after it goes through this last tank circuit, which is tuned, and it should become, because of the discriminator diodes, it will become kind of an S-curve of sorts. So we'll see something that looks like this, and we're looking for our 10.7 to be right there in the center. Let me move that up a little bit. So we'll get set up here in just a second, and I'll detune this radio before your eyes, and we'll begin a realignment of it. So I'll be right back after this. So let me blank my board out. Okay, so stand by just a moment and we'll see how to go through the alignment procedure. Okay, this is the SAM's alignment procedure, and we're going to align it using the FM-IF alignment using FM signal generator and an oscilloscope. All right, the instructions will have us hooked to the FM mixer, and it'll go right into the grid with a 10.7 megahertz signal, and we'll have a sweep going back and forth with it. We'll talk more about that in a moment. The radio, we want it tuned off of a station. We really don't want to have it interfering with what we're doing. You can see those stations when we go through this alignment. They'll look like little lumps on these curves as we look at them. The first connection will be at that point A, and point A, as I said, is at the end of the string of the IF amplifiers. We'll be adjusting the transformers in alpha 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13. And we're looking for a maximum waveform and as much to this shape as we can get it. After we're done with that, we'll move ourselves further down the line to right past the limiter, and we're going to have the same exact connections, but this time we're going to do one of the last cans, which is alpha 14. And we're doing the same thing, trying to create a waveform similar to this with 10.7 in the middle. And then lastly, we will come down and we'll connect to Bravo, which is going to be right past the last can in this string, and it will be right after the discriminator, which will allow us to create a curve similar to this. Now, since I'm not sweeping at 120 hertz, I'm sweeping at 60 hertz, we only get one of these legs. What this is showing you is that you got a sweep going one way and a sweep going the other way, and it creates this funny little figure 8. What we're going to wind up with is a single S-curve, one way or another, and we're looking to get the 10.7 as close to the middle as we can get. And we'll do that by doing this last can, which is alpha 15. So I'll set up on that and we'll get started. Okay, so you can see what we're doing a little bit better. Let me turn the volume down. So you can see a little bit better what we're doing. I'll go ahead and turn my radio down some so you can see those cans a little bit clearer. So the cans that we'll be adjusting will be alpha 9 and 10, which I've already got them marked. There's alpha 9 and 10. We'll also be doing 11 and 12, and we'll be doing 13 with this first run. And then we will go to 14, and then lastly 15. Now, these cans have two coils in there. The top coil I've already set at the left when I wrote it down is alpha 12's on top, alpha 13 is on bottom. In other words, when I take my tool and I stick my tool in here, I'm on alpha 12 right now. But if I shove this tool further down, I'm now on alpha 13. So it's a little bit of a feel thing. But you can see the neutral area in there is where you're at. So the first thing we need to do is make the radio not work anymore. So we'll come in. There's alpha 9, all out of whack. Alpha 10, all out of whack. I'll now go to 11. 11's on bottom. So I come in, there's 3, and then I go all the way to the bottom. Now it's out of whack. Then I go to 12. It's on top. This one's stiff. I'll turn it the other way. And then 13. Turn it another way. Then we want to mess up 14 as well, and 15. So I'll mess up 15. And then I'll mess up 14. All right. So as we see, our radio no longer plays. And it makes funny noise. Hear how it sounds? I mean, we can tune, but the sound is funny because our highs and lows that we're getting through FM modulation is all kinds of messed up. All right, I want to set up with my ICO 369 sweep generator and my analog scope, and I'll show you what you do in order to align it. I'll be right back after I set this up. Okay, I'm set up again, and let me turn this volume down. And right now I am set up injecting a signal on the FM mixer at the grid, and then I'm pulling that signal off right past the last IF amp, which is in this area right here, and you'll just have to trust me. I actually had to use my microscope to get into that V2 tube that's in this area. It's really tight in there. So let me flip the radio around so that we can start the alignment procedure. Make sure I'm not hung up on anything. I think everything is moving well. And I need to move you guys back so that you can see what I'm about to do. Okay, so let me move you back some. Sorry for the adjustment. Okay, the first thing that the alignment instructions wants us to do is to adjust alpha 9 and alpha 10. So let me get my tool, and we'll start adjusting alpha 9 and alpha 10. Alpha 9's on top, alpha 10's on bottom. Now, I've pretty well messed that radio up, and you can see it on the oscilloscope. And let me move you guys over just a little bit so you can watch what I'm doing and the oscilloscope at the same time. And this is a little bit of an art form, to be honest. So let's see how this works. Let's see if I've really messed it up bad. Make sure I'm off of a station. I think that's probably good enough. So let's go in on alpha 9 first. And let's see what we get. That's way off. And that's way off. Okay, that's about as good as I'm going to get right now. And let me put my scope on sweep. That's why I'm having problems. And let me turn off channel 1. And now things should look better. And make sure I've got my signal generator adjusted correctly. Okay. Marker. Okay, let's see if we can sort this out. Okay, I'm going to go off for just a moment. And I've now got myself set up properly. I've got the chassis rotated around so that you can watch me adjust this can here. We'll be watching the oscilloscope, and what we're seeing right there is the marker. And I want to show you guys something. These sweep generators can really cause you some heartache when you're first setting them up. So I'm going to play with some of the controls, and I want you to see what all happens. When I take the marker signal and make it really big, it can, if it's set up too big, it can be confusing. In addition to that, I can adjust the trace so it's like a flat line there, so I've really got to kind of mess with that trace just a little bit. Then again, I've got to adjust the marker down some more. See how confusing this can be? And then the RF out, and this is at the beginning of it, I've got to make an adjustment with that as well. And we're starting to see the waveform that we want to create right here. But we see the marker is way off, which, you know, we should be because I've messed with it. Now the controls on the oscilloscope are such where we're in the XY position. It's important that you're in the XY position. We want to monitor channel 2. Here's why. If we monitor channel 1, the only thing we get is a diagonal line when you're in the XY position. And that can be confusing when you're trying to see all these lines floating around. So you can turn off channel 1. It's right now sweeping at 60 Hertz. That's all it's doing. So let's make an adjustment now to the alpha 9, which is on top. And let's see how that affects our curve. As we see, it got really big, and I'm going to make an adjustment down with that. It got really big, which is good, but my marker is way off. So let's go to 10, and again, this turns into a little bit of an art form, and I want to turn 10, trying to get as big a waveform as I can, but I want to get that marker in the center, and I'm unsuccessful at getting the marker in the center there. So I'm going to go to 11 and 12. So we'll start with 11. 11 right here is on the bottom, and I don't think it's too important for you to watch that, but I will leave it partially in screen. So I'm going to go all the way to the bottom, and I'm going to make an adjustment on 11. 11's really stubborn. Okay. Not getting a whole lot out of 11. There we go. Now I'm getting it. I was on the wrong transformer. Okay, there's maximum on it. I still have not gotten the marker in the center. So let's go to the next two transformers, which is 12 and 13, and I'll make adjustments to them. And you have to kind of go back and forth while you're making these adjustments. So here's 12. That really flipped things around, but that's heading me in the better direction. The marker now is at least coming close. Let me turn the scope down just a little bit. So let's go to 13, see if we can center this a bit. See how this flips around? Begin resonating inside those cans. Alright, I'm still off. So let me go back and start all over again with 9. Okay, that's the best I can do with that one. Okay, there's 9 and 10. Let's go to 11 again. Twelve and 13. Alright, I've lost my marker. Let me shrink down a little bit. Make my marker a little bit bigger. Okay, there's my marker. It's sitting right here, and we're right on a okay, that's closer. And we'll move this trace down some. See it beginning to resonate? I'm really close. Alright, let's start all over again. That's 12 and 13, and we'll start all over again at 9 and 10. Okay, that's bigger. That's bigger. 11. That looks better. Notice how that's big, but this puts it more in the center. And I'm going to say that's a radio station. So I'm going to move the tuner, and this should help everything. Alright, I've now got that radio station, I think, gone. Making adjustments to the scope. This is a back and forth kind of thing that you do when you're making these adjustments. Now I've got the marker over here, and I've got that radio station out of the way, but my form looks nice. So let's go back to 9. See if we can do any good. Okay, let's go to 10. Almost. 11. This one's touchy. Let's go to 12. So I go through different resonances. 13. Sorry for the silence, but this takes a little concentration. Alright, I've kind of lost my marker, so I'm going to turn the marker signal up for a second to see where it's at. And I'm really getting close to that marker. Okay, let's go back to 9. See if we can center that a little bit better. That's nice and centered. Okay, 10's not helping. We'll move 9 again, 10, 9 again. Now I'm going to go to 11. Looking to make that big. That's as big as it'll go. 12 and 13. That didn't do any good. That was 12. There's 13. Alright, what we want to do now, I have the signal on the signal generator fairly high. So I'm going to reduce these signals a little bit. And I want to get this marker back down kind of small. It's in the center. This trace size is fine. This is the sweep frequency, and I want you to watch the oscilloscope when I move the sweep frequency. So as I move it back and forth, it does not affect what we're doing, but it affects what I'm seeing. So it's important to get that correct. My frequency is 10.7 off of this crystal that I have in there. Okay, so let's go back, and with the RF signal down pretty low, let's take another run at making the adjustments. I'm going to 9 and 10. Looks like about as good as I can get. Oh, got a little bit out of 10 that time. Now I'm going to 11, all the way to the bottom. Nothing any bigger. Okay. Now I'm going to go to 12 and 13. And I'm getting a little bit out of them. I'm going to reduce my signal size. Okay, that's probably about it. Alright, I think we're really close. I'm going to increase that marker size again to make sure that the marker is in the center. It's really close to the center. I'm going to call that good. Okay, I'm going to set up just beyond the limiter, and I'll be right back. Okay, I can let you guys see me hook up to the Charlie position, which is right here, which turns out to be 1 on V6 tube. And I can let you see myself do that one. So let me get ourselves focused up on the chassis. I'm going to move you forward a little bit. Excuse me for the movement. V6 is right here, and there's pin number 1. So I'll connect to pin number 1. Alright, we're on pin number 1. Now I'm going to rotate we'll move you guys back, And I'll rotate my chassis around. Alright, chassis is now back in place. Now let's take a look at the oscilloscope from this position. Now we've gone down through another can, and the can we're going to adjust this time is 14, which is on bottom. And so there we are, we're on bottom. Notice my oscilloscope has not got a very good signal on it. We're really weak right there. That can's really messed up. See how everything's all out of whack? I'm going to raise the RF level just a little bit. So we're not resonating like we should be. So I'm going to begin adjusting, and we should see a signal similar to what we had before. I'm going to reduce the marker just a little bit. I don't believe I turned that much that before. Make sure I haven't lost a connection, and I have not. All right, 14 is increase signal size. Reduce the marker. It's trying to resonate. Good position of scope down. Find the marker again. I found these cans can have more than one place where they resonate. Okay, here we're getting a peak, and we lost it. Getting a peak. Okay, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go back to 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13. I'm going to make small adjustments to them. So there's 9. I'm going to reduce the marker size. Now 10. Small adjustments because we had them pretty close before. Alright, I'm going to call that as good as I can get. Let me go back to 14 and make another adjustment to it. One more adjustment. Really not seeing any improvement. Alright, the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to set the radio up at point Bravo which is coming off of pin 3 of the same tube. Okay, so let me rotate the chassis around. Okay, I'm looking for pin 3 on the same tube, 1, 2, 3. So it's right here. Let me rotate the chassis back again. Sorry for all this rotation. And we're going to be adjusting for an S-curve this time. So we'll be adjusting 15, which is on top. Okay, let me reduce that size a little bit. And that's a pretty good S-curve. Now it can look as bad as that, and it can look like that. And I want to show you one other thing, maybe. I'm going to take the sweep frequency and I'm going to move it across. If you don't have that sweep frequency somewhere close, you can be looking at an S-curve there. You can be looking at S-curves up here. So how do you know which one's the right S-curve to adjust to? It is the only one that will have that marker I just turned up. So these little bitty ones right here don't have a marker signal. So I've had that get me in trouble once by doing that. Okay. We basically have adjusted this radio now. Let's see if we've done any good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my tool out. We'll disconnect from the sweep generator. So we're all off of that. I'll turn my scope off so we don't have any interference. I'll turn the scope off as well as the sweep generator. Silence. That might be good, it might not be. Let's rotate the chassis up a little bit. I'm going to hook the antenna back up. I disconnected it earlier because of interference. Alright, moment of truth.
And if you win, you get the shiny fiddle made of gold. But if you lose, the devil gets your soul.
Sounds much better.
It can be like, well, trying to find a haystack. Sure, you can post your job to some job board, but then all you can do is hope the right person comes along, which is why you should try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/deal. ZipRecruiter doesn't depend on candidates.
A little bit more tweaking and I think this radio will be in perfect condition.
Technology identifies.
After I get done aligning an FM radio with my ICO 369 sweep generator and my oscilloscope, I always go back through and I touch up the cans by ear. And what I find is when I do that,
Hey, how you doing? It's me, Stickman.
I get
I'll see you this Saturday, the
much
29th
clearer.
of Cleveland. We're going to be there from 11 to 1. We've got Stickman's Drop Zone with all kinds of US 101
I have a very
prizes,
strong
and
signal
we'll be
here.
celebrating a great deal of Cleveland on Saturday. South Lee Highway.
But I find that I wind up with a much stronger signal and a much clearer signal by just barely touching up each of the cans again. So you want to make sure that you go back through and just touch them a little bit. You can go back and look at it with the oscilloscope and the sweep generator later, and you'll find that the marker has moved just a little bit. And I'm not certain what's going on, but I kind of think that the equipment loads down the radio and causes the frequency to be off just a little bit. At least that's what I think. Now, what we've done is we've gone through this radio and we've aligned it by coming in. I want to move you all back just a little bit, and we'll get out our little board here. But what we've done is we have the front end of the radio that is attached to the antenna, and what we're doing is we're skipping out on that section and the oscillator, and we're coming into the first amplifier sections of the radio, and we're injecting a signal into there with the signal generator. We then attempt to get a solid 10.7 signal all the way through each stage. When we finally get those stages aligned, we go to the discriminator section, and at the discriminator section, we then move the oscilloscope over to that section, and we align it. And that's the last stage before it goes to the audio amplifier. So basically, all we're doing is, it's the same as an AM radio. You're simply injecting a signal, in this case 10.7 megahertz, and you're adjusting a little bit at a time. And you can actually back up with the oscilloscope to stages and just adjust those stages if you need to. But in the case this time, it had us actually pick off here first and then come over here second. Here we were looking to get the highest and get a peak. Over here we're looking for that S curve with our marker in the center on both of these. All right, if you've got any questions, feel free to leave comments down below. Otherwise, I hope you get something out of this, and I hope you find this useful. Enough for now. Bye.